Got 20 seconds. Come on, Amanda, go.
Keep moving. Good. Get those knees up. Explode. Good. Explode. Let's go. Up.
Drop forward. Let's go. One more. Go.
You are listening to the Fight Strength Podcast with your hosts, Daru and Jason Burgos.
Hello, MMA and fitness true believers, and welcome to episode 11 of the Fight Strength Podcast. I am Jason Burgos, senior editor for MMAsucker.com, and as always, I am not alone, as we also have my co-host, the strength and conditioning guru of American Top Team. You know, that gym in Florida just dominating the MMA game these days. And that man is the one and only Phil Daru. Phil, how you doing tonight?
Good evening, Jason.
Hey, I like that. That was good.
Jason, stop giving me compliments now, because on Facebook and on Twitter, you're talking a lot of shit thinking that you're going to beat me in a race. Now, I know for a fact you really don't think that.
I want to test. I'm all for challenges. I want to test myself. And like I said, I want to play Conor McGregor. You play Floyd Mayweather, and we just see what happens.
Well, we already know what's going to happen with that one.
Well, that's cool then. I mean, I'm supposed to lose. But if I win, oh, man. It's going to be Fight Straight Podcast with Jason Burgos and Phil Daru after that.
Okay, I'll give you that.
All right, so this week we will have on one of the true greats in the business of strength and conditioning. He is a man that has a serious influence on this particular industry, and we are really very lucky to have him on the show later. And that man is Zach Even-Esh. But before we get to our interview with Zach, which will be a little bit later after a couple of segments, we have to first and foremost get a little political and tackle a topic that has been a major story in the last week or so in our country, covering the events that took place in Charlottesville, Virginia this past weekend. But the person to do that for us will be Bellator superstar King Mo, because it is time for our latest edition of the King's Proclamation.
Enough. Come, Your Highness. They await you.
Man, I wish the motherfuckers went to motherfucking Memphis, Atlanta, you know what I'm saying, Philadelphia, Gary, Indiana, Chicago with that bullshit, you know what I'm saying? They did in Charlottesville because wasn't no black folks there to stop their ass. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, it's 2017 and this shit's still going on. To all those motherfuckers out there claiming, like, when people bring up racism and prejudice, that, oh, you're over-exaggerating, oh, it's not real. Motherfucker, look at what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. Go look at what happened there, you know what I'm saying? A woman got killed for standing up for the rights of other people, you know what I'm saying? So y'all can kiss my ass with that bullshit, claiming that that shit don't happen no more. It still happens. It's just that y'all motherfuckers are turning a blind eye to it. And it's on y'all. Her blood is on y'all motherfucking hands.
Mo being as real and as explicit as ever, and it's hard to disagree with some of the things he's saying there. I have a lot to say on it myself, especially with how our president responded to it all. But Phil, your thoughts on what Mo had to say and the whole incident and fallout in general?
I think it's unfortunate. I think it's something that needs to stop. It kind of feels surreal in a way, because it's almost like we're living in the past, but in the same sense, this isn't anything new for people of culture. So I think that we need to really rethink of our actions and understand what we are doing as individuals, and be in mind that everybody has their own thoughts and emotions, and everybody's inclined to speak the way they want to speak, but also you have to be conscious of what you're doing as an individual, and really take a step back and figure out what you're trying to accomplish with the things that you're saying and the things you're doing.
I mean, I agree with everything you say. It's a frustrating time. This is hopefully a time in American history. I hope we look back and we tell, younger generations, man, hey, you think it's bad now. At least you didn't live in that Donald Trump era, man. That was crazy because, to see how divisive it is. And, history, there's been points like this in the 1920s. The KKK rose up again. The 70s, It was like this. It's frustrating. And I can never truly understand how certain people feel on the topic because I'm, not African American, but, to see our president first, talk about the issue with a very bland, clearly reading off of a paper kind of statement, and the next day come out with, F that. Yeah, I didn't like what I had to say, so I'm going to be Trump, and I'm just going to say these things, cutting off reporters, which I just loathe, and to, give the classic false equivalent of, these people were bad, so they're just as bad, and just to not come out hard, against white supremacists and neo-Nazis and what they were doing there, and let's not act like they were all there peacefully and what their message was getting across, and then it comes out and says things like, even if they're doing Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson, is it Jefferson and Washington next? And let's not get crazy. I know Jefferson and Washington did some bad things. They had slaves themselves, but they had a different mission in life. They helped form this country that we have today, which in general was to have unity, and they didn't practice what they preach all the time. But this is different from guys who a lot of people seem to forget were looked at as traitors to the Union. Generals who wanted secession and pushing slavery. It's unfortunate to have a president that's doing this kind of stuff. I'm glad to see some Republicans are coming out hard against him, but yeah, I agree with everything you said. I agree with everything Mo said, and it's a crazy time we're living in. At least we have things like Fight Strength Podcast to entertain the people and keep them positive, right?
Always. We want to keep it positive. Everything we do, it's for positivity. And when negative things like this, you have to take a step back and really understand that, is this really going to help you in the long run, or are we really taking ourselves away from the true message and goal and mission in life? Now with Mo has very close contact with a lot of people that really got hit hard with this, and let's not take it for granted. Because Mo is so quote unquote explicit and he has a true passion for this, is because he actually lived it. Mo's lived in the country of countries and definitely really felt true segregation. So whatever he says, man, he truly believes it and feels it, and I respect him and I back him 100%.
Yeah, and what he said is so true, too, in that on all this, especially with the Trump nonsense and the fallout of just getting mad at Trump, is this poor woman was killed, because of that crazy guy driving into the crowd. Like, that gets lost.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah, that should never happen.
Yeah, forgetting that and, you're not, putting more emphasis on that. And it's almost being like domestic terrorism, especially now today with what happened in Barcelona. Another event where a car was driven into a crowded area. Just like that, there's other stories to talk about, but that when you have a president that's like a lightning rod, this is what happened. But, now with the serious stuff out of the way, I will remind you guys, you can always check out all of our previous episodes on iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio. Got to get that plug in there so you can check out some of our older, really good episodes with, Steve Peacock, Dean Thomas, and Dr. Andy Galpin. Great people. Now, comment on the show, please. Give us a rating whenever you listen to it. If you dig it, share it out there, get it around. But now onto our Ask Daru segment, which is sponsored by Daru Strong Training Systems. If you want to live a healthier and stronger life, just like a pro athlete, you need to start using these systems. Now, because some fans asked for it in our recent survey, we have what you might call a Phil Daru PSA for you. Some motivational words from a man that has to help high-level athletes every day and motivate them. So this guy has a message, and he's practiced it many times with some serious athletes and helped them along. Phil, do you have little motivational words for us today?
Okay, let's do this on episode 11. I'm going to give you the true end of everything, but here it goes.
Okay.
Be conscious of your surroundings while being focused on the mission. Have a clear view of distractions, as it will be easier to block negativity, altering your path to the end goal. You see, most of the time, people become sidetracked. As this happens, the road traveled becomes more and more distant, taking away from the original plan of action. Know where you're going, but have a clear view of the direction while being able to pay attention to signs and the side of the road. Boom.
Wow. You wrote that yourself?
Listen, off the top.
Wow. Not only is he a high-level trainer, not only is he a gardener, and he keeps it on the low. He is a
Fucking
motivational speaker and a poet, and you know it. Damn, that was good. I'm impressed. That was pretty good.
Listen, I used to freestyle back when I was in high school.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, what? Wow. Can we get a freestyle now? Well, we kind of did. All right, maybe next time. Maybe get that the
Yeah,
freestyle.
you got it. You got it.
Now, for our first Ask Daru and only question, because it's that good, from Neil Jasu Banega Saibe. I'm hoping I'm saying it right. I hope I'm not messing up your name, but he's from Florida. He asks, how much emphasis is put on speed and explosiveness in strength and conditioning training for combat athletes? It is implemented more with weights, plyometrics, I hope I'm saying it right, or other methods.
Plyometrics.
Oh, plyometrics, sorry.
Yeah, so like I've always said, before on other podcasts, is that speed kills. You know what I mean? So being explosive and having the ability to be powerful will not only help you with being able to change the course of the fight in an instant, but it will also help you get out of situations like scrambling on a takedown or being able to reverse control from a jiu-jitsu standpoint. So it does help. Having optimal speed over your opponent will help aid in being able to be first in the exchange or to counter effectively, getting out of the way of shots, being in control of the pace of the whole entire fight. With that being said, obviously speed plus precision will definitely take over. So you want to make sure that you have both skills at hand. Now, when it comes to our training, for these aspects, we use a mix of short and long linear and lateral speed drills. Short sprints and crossover runs are a key factor for me. I like to do things because we are in close quarters, so it has to be around 10 to 20 yards to really get that full, spectrum of the fight itself. I also like to utilize sled runs and agility cone drills to help with that change of direction and lateral speed. Now, for hand speed, we usually use like med balls for reactive wall passes and ladder drills for the upper body. Power explosiveness, we usually will incorporate more med ball throws for distance and a series of rotational throws on the wall with some slams as well. Now, any type of plyometrics, jumping, bounding, hopping, hurdle jumps with weighted vests or ankle weights, drop jumps, and depth jumps. I also like to do these with some box jumps, but making sure that it's manageable for your height, so you're not just like bringing those knees up to your chest and burying your head into your ass. Athletes that can land efficiently, I switch it up and I'll do some counter movements and non-counter move jumps to hit rate of force production and stretch reflex response. So basically meaning if I'm gonna do jumps on a box, I'll have them do a counter movement to where they're shooting their hands down, getting that hip drive and jumping back up, or I'll have them sit in that squatted or half squatted position or quarter squatted position, and then give them like a 5 count, and then have them explode up onto the box from a static position. So it's kind of static overcome by dynamic. Now, I rarely do Olympic lifts, and what I mean by that is I will not do them with a barbell due to the simple fact that the high level of demand and high level of technical movements that require you to actually practice it on a constant basis. The one thing that I do like to do is I will perform hang cleans, snatches, and power shrugs with dumbbells because it's less risk of injury and it's easier to teach.
Now, I was going to ask you what plyometrics, because you say it so much in the show, but you answered it. So plyometrics are like exercises where it's specifically, it's a lot of jumping kind of exercises. Yeah.
I mean, true plyometrics, like we said before, I've known I said this in the past, but Yuri Vereshensky actually brought this to, society in general, and it was basically called shock training, where he would perform jumping movements, and it would either be on a box or it'd be on over hurdles or just in place. And basically what that means is you're jumping for maximum amount of distance or height. And then sometimes you can do that under some volume. So it could be, bounding broad jumps or reactive box jumps like I do on some of my videos if you've seen that on Snapchat or Instagram. Now, basically, like I said, plyometrics is jumping, but also making sure that they're doing it in a efficient manner and where you're not just kind of flopping around or just jumping for no reason.
Yeah.
Because that's been a negative connotation. It's been something that's been looked upon as, I want to say it's false of what I'm seeing nowadays, where everybody's saying plyometrics, but they're not really doing the true plyometrics, what Yuri Vereshchansky's actually brought to the system. And then from there, it kind of just developed into, okay, well, any type of jumping movement is now considered plyometrics, which is not really the case.
Right. Now, I've seen your videos, which I remember everybody, you can look at Phil's videos on Snapchat, like you said, Instagram, Daru Strong, that you do a lot where you're having your fighters, your athletes, they're jumping onto one leg, and you know, my brain goes, you know, especially with my so knees, it goes, oh, that's gotta be tough. But like, could you explain that? And because I'm sure there's a purpose, and I'm sure it's great. Like, how do you do it? And also, is that a type of thing that you really have to work yourself up to? Let's say if you're not a high level athlete, so you know you can build that stabilization, you just can't jump right into it.
Yeah. So first and foremost, like we've talked about before, and even in episode 9, you can take a look back and see what Cameron Josh was talking about. But you first want to start off by doing some sort of drop jump or eccentric strength. But what you would do is basically you would jump off a box and land on 2 feet. And once you can do that and establish that with good form and good technique and have a base, then you can start jumping on 2 feet onto a surface or over hurdles. Then once you master that, then you can go on to a single leg movement. And I would prefer you probably get used to landing first, because landing is actually more important than the jump itself. And then from there, then you could start doing 1 foot or single foot jumps with a eccentric component. So instead of, you know, actively just jumping to jump on one leg, you want to jump and stick and land. And then once you can do that efficiently, then you can do reactives or repetitive jumps from there.
All right, interesting. With your questions answered, we now bring on our guests. It is a pleasure to have on a legend of the strength and conditioning industry. He's a teacher, a trainer, and an author, having written books like Underground Strength Collective, the Encyclopedia of Underground Strength and Conditioning, and the Gladiator Project. He's also the founder of the Underground Strength Gym, which has 3 locations throughout New Jersey. He has trained some of the best athletes on the planet for 15 years, and we are very lucky to have him on. He is Zach Even-Esh. Zach, thank you for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it.
Cool, man. It's my pleasure, guys. I'm excited following what Phil's doing, and I'm excited, man. Talk real, as that saying goes. Real, recognize real.
I hear you, brother. So, yeah. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and let the listeners, if they don't know by now, you know, how you got started in coaching and what led you to working with those young wrestlers and those high school athletes like you're doing now up in New Jersey.
Yeah. So what's crazy is this afternoon, this evening, my high school wrestling coach organized the team from where I used to live, about 45 minutes away up in Edison, New Jersey. And he brought the team down to the one location I have in a small town. It's a little beach town called Manasquam. And he's like telling these guys, like, this guy's a legend. People flying here. And people say that, I just feel so, I really feel awkward, to be honest. I feel awkward because I feel most at home when I'm training the kids coming from Edison, or even when I drive through that town when I go and coach up at Rutgers University, because it reminds me of where I came from. So I was born in Israel. We moved to this country when I was 11 months old, and then we lived in the Bronx, New York.
Hey, that's where I'm at right now.
Really? So Riverdale is where.
Oh, not far. I'm in Pelham Parkway area.
Yeah. So my aunt actually still lives in Riverdale since the 70s. So we moved to America. I was born 75, so late 75. And moved to New Jersey, I think I was about 4 years old. And grew up in a town called Edison, it's more like a city now. And not much of really, not like anything to write home to mom about with regards to my athletics. My dad was born in Romania, and my mom was born in Israel. So coming from kind of that European background, you know, my dad knew sports like soccer, basketball. He just was kind of like in those kind of sports. And my older brother started wrestling his sophomore year, and I just played soccer. My dad used to basically take us to play soccer, play basketball, like street games. That's kind of how it was back in the day. I actually had
definitely.
I explained that shit to my son. We watched the movie The Sandlot, and I said,
yes.
Yeah.
The best movie ever, man.
Yep.
If some kids would knock on your door, you could play some street ball. That's what we did back in the day.
Yeah.
There was no such thing as a play date. It's called hanging out. So I'm trying to teach up my kids that stuff. So anyway, my older brother got me into wrestling, which was really the thing that changed my life. I started wrestling as a freshman in high school, and the high school and the town we were in was a really blue-collar town, and the kids on the wrestling team were all experienced. I mean, they had wrestled in the developmental rec program through middle school, some of them through elementary school, and nowadays there's high school teams pretty much have a JV and a varsity team. Back then there was a freshman team, and I remember I had to wrestle off to even try to make the freshman team. And I lost. I got pinned every wrestle off, so I never won a match freshman year, even though I was, what you would call a hard worker. So back in the 80s, the training information was bodybuilding. Arnold Schwarzenegger was ruling the TVs, the movies, and it was about machines and Joe Weider and Flex Magazine. And you never heard the word strength coach. Never. So if you went to a gym, there would be less than 5 powerlifters in the entire gym. Okay. And they were they all just didn't look big. Even it was weird. It was like they just only trained heavy, or they didn't know how to train. So it didn't really capture my attention. So I trained like a bodybuilder and competed in wrestling. And long story short, I did a lot of just incorrect training. I explained that to the kids today, the high school that came down. I said, the wrestling season would begin. I would stop all lifting and I would run every other night, 3, 4, 5 miles. And I basically added conditioning on top of conditioning, which was the wrestling practice. And I would, back then, I don't know what's going on, but I'm questioning, why the hell am I so tired, but I'm running all the time? That's kind of the shit that you were told to do. Go run. Go, nobody really knew what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So those mistakes all throughout high school led to injuries, knee injuries, shoulder injuries, and then other common things that us combative guys get, torn shoulders, broken nose, you fucking seen it. Those things happened to me. And then when I got out of high school, I started just kind of, I got into, I loved bodybuilding. I competed as a bodybuilder my sophomore year in college. And then that was the beginning of Title IX, early or mid-90s. Wrestling programs were just, Division III wrestling programs getting cut big time. And the college I was at had a great wrestling program. And I remember to this day standing outside of the wrestling room, and I was with a friend of mine, and she was a star athlete at the university. And I was like, yo, I think I'm going to go in and talk to this coach, or I'm going to fucking regret this, and I need to wrestle. I need to do this. He's like, yeah, go in and just talk to him right now. And I look in, and, they're training. I'm like, I think, they're busy, so I'm not going to walk in the middle of practice. And I remember it was the next day or that week that the school newspaper, the college had their own newspaper announcing that this was the final season of Kane College. It was. I was the first graduate of Kane University, first class, Kane College, ending their college program. And I remember the pain of the regret of I'll never know. And those days were the beginning of UFC. They used to call it NHB. They call it NHB fighting, no holds barred. And it was
yeah, I remember that.
all these places. But what I saw was the guys winning were the wrestlers.
Yeah, of course.
Mark Coleman, Mark Kerr, just Dan Severn. For any guys that are in their 40s would know them. So you don't really, it wasn't MMA. So even the internet was kind of like in its newer years. So I looked up shoot fighting because I had heard of Charlottesville. And there was a gym about 25 minutes from Edison in a town called Newark, which is a pretty, was definitely very dangerous back then, still is, but building up. The guy who owned the place was Dan Miragliotta, Big Dan, the ref.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's funny that like guys like you, when I say these names, it just, these names.
Yeah.
And Phil, especially you, so much working with these fighters, all these names, it's like the lineage. What's also crazy is to see guys were fighting back then, like Robbie Lawler, still fighting now. It blows my mind. So long story short, I find this place, Dan is there, but Dan, I don't even recall what his job was, but it was like anybody coach. You'd show up and you didn't really drill. I remember I was there for 2 weeks and I entered Grappler's Quest Nationals because I could take down everybody. But I wouldn't know what. I didn't even know closed or open guard. I would just take people down and I try to like neck crank people. Like from like.
I'm gonna be honest. That kind of works. It's basically catch wrestling. So it's definitely worked for a lot of wrestlers.
But we just didn't know. Like nobody was really teaching anything. You just kind of went there and you scrapped. And I was coaching wrestling, so I was still on the mat. Once I graduated high school, I was still wrestling by coaching. So I actually started adjusting my training, my lifting. So I was doing things that maybe didn't make sense, and I was looking a little more at like the bodybuilders of the 60s. And I was like, I'm going to fucking farmer walk these dumbbells around the gym. And I'm going to clean and press dumbbells, and I'm going to build up, my goal, I'm going to clean and press that 100. And I would do 1 rep with the 100, then 1 rep with the 90, then 1 rep with the 80, and I'd go down. And I basically took that like intensity technique from Arnold Schwarzenegger's, drop sets from his Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding. So I tried kind of like pulling stuff from the older bodybuilding days, which was a blend kind of powerlifting, weightlifting, and gymnastics. And it changed my mindset. I essentially got tougher. And I also had a different confidence that I did not have in my younger years. I kind of started feeling like, I'll fucking fight anybody. I just started changing, and I realized that my training in my younger years essentially did not develop the mind. And that's probably why, like, as this conversation unfolds, a lot of my training is like, okay, am I developing this guy mentally and emotionally and psychologically? Or am I just following the science, which, as you know, you could be training somebody according to all these scientific principles, but a fight a fight could last. I remember I saw Andrei Arlovsky fight, and it lasted like 9 seconds. We've also seen fights. What is it? 3 rounds? 3 rounds, 5 minutes now.
Yeah, 5 5s or 3 5s.
5 5s for the championship round. So it's like you don't know if. What the fuck's going to happen? And it's like what's very cool about the combative sports is you're kind of training for all of these different energy systems, and you must train the mind. So this is what very much intrigued me about it. It was like, wow, like I'm training this way, and I've got a different confidence to myself. Not even confidence in, when I wrestled other people, but like confidence in my work, confidence in my ability to like approach girls in my young years. It was like, it was a very like a life-changing thing for me, because so much of my downfall was my emotional state, not being coachable, not being tough when you need to be tough, and just a lot of those kind of intangibles of coaching that are kind of hard to write about. So I had torn my ACL training. I had lost in overtime at that Grappler's Quest, and I was so pissed off. I took the Dan Gable approach of like, all right, I'm going to work so fucking hard. Like, motherfucker on this planet that's going to outwork me. And this next, I think it was like, I did Grappler's Quest Nationals or something. And by nationals, I'm talking like 12 people or 8 people showed up. You know, your nationals is more like the fucking town grappling event or something now. And I think it was 2 weeks later was going to be the World Championships. And you know what's so funny about the title World Championships is like, you know, I'm telling you guys, I didn't know open or closed guard. I mean, I didn't know one submission or one escape from a submission, but I could take you down. And that was my thing, was like, I could take anybody down, but I didn't know what to do from there. So when I lost in overtime, I took this guy down so many times. And then we're in overtime, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing in overtime? I'm just destroying this guy. Yeah. And then I'm in overtime. I take him down several times, and I'm just, this feeling is like, yes, I'm about to get my hand raised, and this is going to fucking feel good. And they raise up my hand, and I'm just in shock. And then the ref is like, he had like 50 near submission attempts on you. It was like putting me like triangles and chokes, and I was just like, in my brain, I'm like, you got to kill me if you're going to stop me. But I would take a guy down, he pulled guard, he was putting me into like triangles, and I just kept like getting out of everything, and I didn't know. So I started training very hard, and I remember one morning I showed up before the scheduled practice, and I was just training anything in the gym. I would like take the heavy bags, and I would squat them, lunge them, carry them, run with them. And I was doing like push-ups, pull-ups, dips. I was just going. And then we just start sparring, and not even sparring, like warming up a little. And a guy goes to like gently heel trip me. Gently. He like kicks my heel ever so gently, and my ACL goes like, and this is like, I don't know anything about strength and conditioning. I don't know anything about nothing really. I know how to lift, and I'm thinking for my hamstring, I didn't know anything. And this was the turning point, because I got surgery a few months later. I was a teacher back then, and believe it or not, I tore my ACL probably in the winter sometime, March or something, and I didn't even know I could get surgery like during the school year. So I waited several months until I finished teaching to get surgery. And in my mind, I started researching things like, in my mind, I'm thinking, you know, I've been training for a long time. I'm fucking jacked. I'm strong. I look like I could stop a truck, but I'm always getting hurt, and that just confused me and angered. So I knew that the best wrestlers were the Russians. So I don't even know if Google existed. It was like, there was websites like Yahoo, and there was a search engine called like Dog Pile, and search the shit, and it would say go fetch. So I was searching things like Russian wrestling workout, Russian wrestling method, Russian wrestling training. And that's when I started learning about conjugate method. I came across Lead FTS and started reading anything Russian training related. I came across all of Louis' original West Side articles, printed everything, put them in a 3-ring binder. I remember like my parents, I was like 25, 26. My dad's like, Zach, I'm going to just like buy you a lot of paper because you're like printing everything. I printed like Charlie Francis books, anything.
Nice. There you go.
Performance related, I would print and devour. I'd fucking read till 3 a.m. And then I would experiment on myself and rehabbing myself. And that surgery, in my mind, all I was thinking was like, okay, I need to change the way wrestlers train in this world so nobody makes my mistakes, because everybody was still training the way I was training. I'd see wrestlers at the local gym doing, like just doing really like flex type bodybuilding, squeeze.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just nothing that was really going to develop them. And
when was this? What year was this?
This would have been, if I was a 5th-year teacher, it was like 02, 03.
Okay.
And that time was the beginning of what was called functional training. Perform better, killing it. Everything was called sports specific and functional. Like, if you weren't like standing on a wobble board and doing all this crazy shit, I felt like an outsider. I felt like an outsider. In fact, I remember the reason why I trained with tree logs and sledgehammers was because I had no money. I was in debt of $20-something thousand. It was like 25 or 26 grand. and I was just piecing stuff together, blended from Rocky movies, blended from golden era of bodybuilding. And I just basically started training some kids in my neighborhood after I bought some used equipment from classified ads, from gyms that moved. So I started doing a little bit of stuff in my parents' garage. I had a 300-pound weight set. They would like deadlift, but I didn't understand why kids were deadlifting with round back. I didn't realize like they're just too fucking weak, and you got to build all those, posterior muscles. But then we would do things like go out into the backyard. We had all these stones in my backyard. Carry the stone, clean and press it, lunge with the stone. So I would do like a traditional lift, but if I didn't have the weights for it, I would use the stone. I would throw like a beach towel over a tree branch and make them do pull-ups with the from the towels. We had a big tree that was cut down in the backyard. Big tree stump was there, so I would have the guys take an axe and a sledgehammer and just do like 100 reps. So I didn't really know what I was doing, but what was happening was these guys were getting strong. They were getting tough. And then the thing that hit me the most was like 2 weeks after training a kid for just like 3 sessions a week, he beat a kid really bad that beat him just like 2 weeks prior or 3 weeks prior. And that was like when the light bulb went off, and I was like, whoa, that's up. Like, okay, like I got it.
The funny thing is that's true functional training right there. not fucking Bosu balls and wobble boards. Like, I started like that. What I was saying, we were talking about this, off air, but like I started doing sledgehammer slams and tire flips and battle ropes and sandbag carries. When I started my facility, I was 22 years old. All I had was a 500-pound tire, a sledgehammer, and I think I had a battle rope that I got from like an old boating house.
Yes.
And I just went to town, man. I had a boot camp, and I had all these people in there, soccer moms in there, sledgehammer slamming and tire flipping and shit. They loved it, and it grew. You know what I mean? And people were getting strong, and that's that. I understand where you're coming from. Those
early days was real interesting because, when I started doing that, and I started realizing like, hey, I wanna do this.
Yeah.
You still didn't hear too much the word strength coach. You heard personal trainer.
Mm-hmm.
So, fast forward a little bit with all the research, I came across a guy that was doing a lot of marketing for fitness coaches, and I bought his product, and I started like applying some, sound business principles. I created some simple memberships, and I started taking photos of what we did. And, I started, everything I did, I would write about it. And I would like submit it to the local newspaper. And I, signed up for this website that you could build your own website. It was before even like Blogger or Blogspot was out. And some kid reached out to me from somewhere in the UK back when there was AOL email. I actually heard they like just discontinued AOL email.
No, I still have AOL right now.
Okay, somebody told me that like AOL email is going to be like discontinued. So this kid like sent me AOL Instant Messenger saying, "Hey man, you should like submit." I had created an ebook, called it the Gladiator, the Gladiator Training Manual, and it was basically like I broke down everything we did. I said, okay, here's our free weight exercises. That's chapter 1. Here's like how we train with stones. Here's how I train with sledgehammers and tree logs. Here's how we train body weight and calisthenics at the playground. Then it was like sample workouts. Then it was like why you should create a home gym and why you should train outdoors. And I just wrote a chapter every time my fiance would work. She was a nurse working the night shift. And when she would work and we weren't together, I would sit in front of a computer and just write. And I got that kind of writing skills from all the fucking papers I did in grad school. It was like, easy to write. And back then, the functional training, Phil, was, all these dudes were wearing like khakis and tucked in shirt, and it was very proper. And basically, people were like, hey man, that guy Zach Even-Esh is an idiot. Look at him, he's a fucking idiot, training kids with tree logs and shit like that. He's not
That's so funny, man.
following whatever scientific principle. And when this guy Ryan Lee was interviewing me, he's like, so describe, this whole training thing you do. I go, I don't follow these rules that everybody says you got to follow. This, you have to do 3 sets or you got to train this much. I go, I'm underground, man. I'm not following any of these rules. He's like, so he's like, you're like the underground strength coach. I was like, yeah, I guess. And that's kind of how that started. And those implements of training, everything evolved through these like experiences I had because I didn't have the warehouse gym. Back then, you couldn't really find affordable equipment. Stuff was quite expensive. So when we bought our first house, we had to gut this thing. And the first thing my wife's uncles did was they fixed up the 2-car garage, sheetrocked it. I had purchased equipment from here, there, everywhere, all kinds of used stuff. And then in the backyard, when they cut down an old cherry tree, they left the logs. So once I started kind of writing these articles and I began writing for USA Wrestler New Jersey, I was getting the wrestling community was like, whoa, this is the shit. Because they see like photos of our guys like pushing a car, pushing a truck, or like running up like a long flight of stairs, or they see us like military pressing picnic tables or throwing sandbags. I would just do things like, what was cool was the elementary school down the street had this great setup of like a very big parking lot. They pushed the car, then they would sprint the hill, and the hill was very short, so it would take like a 5-6 second sprint. They'd sprint to the top, and then they'd like pummel and hand fight. And then I'd have my dad actually welded my first sled for me, and I bought my first sled from Louis Simmons. I used to speak with him every week.
Yeah.
And they sent the first sled. Boy, everybody loves the story. It's like it didn't even come in a box. It was a sled with leathery stamps like duct tape to it. It was like
That's Louis for you.
It was just like tape to it. And I started having the guys drag sleds and do partner, hand walking and jump, broad jumping up the hills. And because it was an elementary school, the basketball nets were lower. So the kids would do shit like, bang out 5 pull-ups, then, grab that sandbag and sprint up the hill with it. And I was basically looking at things like, how did Alexander Karelin train? He would train in the snow. So when it snowed, I took the guys down to the field and they'd fucking run through the snow. I feel like, some of our toughest guys came from the days of me training them in my garage, in my backyard. And then when I made the transition finally to my first gym, I remember the emotional, like the internal feeling of like, man, I feel like we've lost a little something here because we're no longer at the playground and kids got to wait online to drag the sled because there's cars going through this parking lot. Whereas I have, 8 kids and it would be like, okay, this guy's pushing the truck. The other 2 to 3 are sprinting the hill. The other 2 guys, you're drag the sled, then you got to sprint across the parking lot to the playground. You're going to press the picnic table. Then you're going to jump on the picnic table. Then you're going to split squat off of the bench. Then you're going to do max chin-ups, sprint back, truck, this, that. And then it was like, fuck, we kind of got like a little civilized when I got the first gym. And I started realizing, okay, I've got to make sure that these guys don't get, it's that Rocky 3, I think, where Mickey tells Rocky, about Clubber Lang, like, this.
Got civilized.
Yeah, you got civilized. And I'm really careful with these combative athletes getting that way. Yeah. And I applied that, 3 years ago. I was at Lehigh as their strength coach for the wrestling team. And they had just gotten a brand new building. They had this old historical, almost it looked like a barn. Had these cathedral ceilings with the whole thing was framed out with old wood. I mean, when they invited me up there to train their guys in that like historical thing, I get goosebumps talking about it because I remember the guys were on the benches kind of lacing up, getting ready. it was some of their guys prepping for the Olympics, doing all the international. And then it was like their starters. And it's just like, you know, I'm kind of this very, I don't even know what the word is, not emotional, but I'm like so in tune with like the spiritual aspect of the training. So I just I walked out onto the wrestling mat, and around the entire wall were all these black and white photos of all the All-Americans and national champs, dude, dating back to like the 30s. And you saw like hardest looking motherfuckers, like beautiful faces, and you just saw it in their eyes. And as I walked around, I like got to this part and I just like stopped. You know, my back was turned to everybody. They were doing their thing. I just closed my eyes. And I felt like I heard the ghosts of those wrestlers. I heard like their feet moving on the mat. I heard them like grunting and, you know, hitting shots, and, you know, that sound of the feet when it twists on the mat. And I like whistles going, and I heard a coach screaming, and I just felt this like crazy historical presence of every wrestler that went through there. And probably part of that is, you know, like, remember my wrestling coach in high school, the head coach, saying, you know, I may have been 1990, 91 maybe, and he said, gentlemen, you are the last of the gladiators. You are to go out onto that mat and engage in hand-to-hand combat, mano y mano. And something he said was like, you know, this is before the movie Gladiator. You know, you don't even envision that stuff, but he start making you think that this is so much, this wrestling thing is bigger than you. It's bigger than your life. It's bigger than, you know, you start thinking like, I'm about to go into like, you know, the battles here of like, you know, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, where they do battle hand to hand. And I've always kind of taken that, and that's probably where my passion comes from, all of these places. And it's, you know, sometimes, you know, you asked me earlier about the training of the kids. Sometimes I actually have a very hard time training the kids because they're so, you know, they lack passion, or they're scared, and you got to really do a lot of things to build them up. And sometimes, you know, you could spend years with a kid, and it's like sometimes that kid just doesn't want to be that. He doesn't care if he's not the hammer. He doesn't care if he's not the best, you know, whereas like yesterday and today I did a 2-day challenge over at Rutgers with our guys. And some of these guys, I say to some of the guys, I'm like, man, if I ever got a dead body in the back of my trunk, I'm fucking calling you, brother. I'm calling you. He's like, let's do it right now. Like, you know, I know who I could count on. And we got a kid that was there. He's an incoming freshman, but I've been working with him for like 2 years. And he's like, what'd I get on that 2-mile air dime? What'd I get? I go, second place. I go, you know what second place is, right? He goes, first fucking loser. Like, wait, get it. Like other kids, like, God forbid you're talking about score and losing. And I tell kids when they're in the gym, I go, guys, make no mistake about it. I want you to fucking win, but I can't help you till you help yourself. And this workout will work differently. You could train with somebody with the same workout, same eating, same lifestyle. You know, not that there's never everything the same, but for 3 years doing all this shit side by side, and he'll go on and surpass you to go to a Division I, and you won't do nothing. You'll just be part of the team because of the mindset. So until that mind connects with the training and you become like obsessive crazy about it, you know, you won't win. You know, I feel more comfortable around guys like Steve Mocco, like that intensity. To me is normal. But I didn't have that in my younger years. So what's interesting is I have to bring myself back and remind myself where I was when I was a kid and the mistakes I made. And it makes me a better coach. You know, I've really evolved as a coach. Those early years of when I trained guys in my house, and then when first years of the garage, of the warehouse, you know, I was a teacher. So I was making a full-time income, and I limited the gym membership to 40 people. And dude, there was times where like people would like fucking like go through a warm up, start like gassing out, and I'd be like, get the fuck out of here, you fucking like I was nuts, like I was crazy, and I look back and I'm saying like, man, I don't even know if that was the right thing, or like I just would do, and sometimes I flip out on people like that. So I always, when I sometimes am around, people like you guys, you'll hear me say stuff like, man, I wonder what it's like to just suck. Life would be so. Then I wouldn't give a shit, right? Like if I suck, I wouldn't care if you don't put effort in. But I fucking hate losing. Like I hate seeing another team lose, because I'm like, shit. I look at the physique and I'm like, that kid needs to squat. And if that kid maybe just would sprint with a sled, 3 days a week, he wouldn't have gassed out in the third period. Like my brain doesn't shut off, and sometimes I'm like, it's a double-edged sword, and it's sometimes an internal struggle I have with myself to kind of maintain my inner fire.
Yeah. Well, how do you maintain it though? Since you had all these successes, and now you're training pretty much. I see you with kids like nonstop since I want to say I've been watching you since maybe 2008, 2009. And it's dating back longer than that, but like, how do you keep that fire going, man?
Well, I always remind myself how important being a coach is, and that is like it's this pure, beautiful thing that as a coach you could change somebody's life. And my wife actually reminded me of that. So I live in this town now. I come from a very blue collar town. Yeah. Where like if somebody had a problem with you, they're like, I'll fucking see you after school, man.
You'll like, handle it.
Yeah. You're like, fuck, I'm gonna have to figure out how to fight in about 2 hours. Whereas like I'm in a town where it's so sheltered, and my wife said to me about a kid I trained, this is where I kind of answer your question, is he's like, you changed that kid's life. He's like, I see him walking home from school all the time, and he never looked up ever. His head down, he looked at the ground. He couldn't look people in the eye. And we ran into him somewhere in town, and he's looking you square in the eye, and he's fucking big and strong and confident. And this town has, I'm not saying I saved somebody's life or nothing like that, but this area has what was called is called a suicide cluster. And I think that I look at this, as much as I talk about winning and you getting your hand raised and being the champion and winning this tournament and winning at this level and that level, the real core of it is, can I change your life so that when life gets tough, you're like, bring it, motherfucker. Because I've gone through some hellish training. I have disciplined myself. I'm not afraid to work hard when the economy collapses and shit like that. Like, but that's what I want. Like, I want, let's say that, the economy's let's say the economy collapses. People are like, I ain't coming to train at that gym, blah, blah, blah. I say, okay, the gym is free for everybody, but I'm going to fucking go work at night somewhere stocking shelves. I'm going to mow people's lawns. I'm going to wash people's cars. I'm going to take this work ethic I learned from training, from wrestling, and apply it. So what I see is I'm trying to build people who are strong in life. And to me, that's the beauty. A kid who shows up 80 pounds, can't look you in the eye, and he leaves 180 pounds, fucking deadlifting 400 plus pounds. That doesn't mean I don't want him just strong in the gym, but now you're going to take that discipline and apply it to your academics and apply it to your social life and apply it to your future for when things are tough as a family man, or any, times are always coming. And I've been reading, I've read it before, and I don't know why it's sunk in, but I'm rereading The 50th Law with 50 Cent, Robert Greene.
I've seen that. It's a good book. I like that.
Oh, and the whole beginning is essentially saying, like, comfort is the enemy, and the way your mind is forged is going to be the difference maker. So, the president that said the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, they said that happened during, like, the economic depression. And he's like, we're fearing something, we're creating more fear. Let's just fucking get after it and let's face it head on and work for it. Or there was another guy going out to fight, and he'd have to go through these mountains of snow, and they're like, sir, you cannot take the army there because it's snow, it's the Alps, it's the this. He goes, not for us. There are no Alps. There are no mountains too high. And they went and they won this war because the opposing army did not think that these people would go through all that. So what I'm always trying to do is how can I change somebody's life? To me, I believe that is the ultimate, and it is the ultimate goal, and it's also the minimum effective dose as a coach. Now, let me expand on that. I have a lot of energy, and I watch your videos, Phil, and I actually try not to watch too many other coaches because I don't want to be influenced that this is that, but there's certain people I connect with, and I really love what you're doing. I watch you, I watch Bartholomew, and I hear in your voice. I fucking hear, I feel how you care about those guys, and you're
I appreciate it.
Feeling that shit from a video. I've been in gyms where people are like, I feel like I'm at a funeral. Like they're are squatting halfway, or their knees are caving in, and it's a light weight. Nobody's saying nothing. So I feel like I don't know, man. I feel like this coaching is this kind of thing that's so much bigger than how much am I getting paid, the business, the this, that. And to me, something beautiful about it. But there's also this part of me that says maybe I should not be coaching. I'm 41, I'm married, I have 2 kids, and sometimes it's hard to lower that intensity level when I get home. I like to be very transparent. I don't want, people see us on Instagram or this or that, and they think everything's like just smooth. But sometimes I'm home and I don't know how to be Coach Zach can't be, just be dad and husband. So I'm tough on my kids because my kids are getting into that age where their athletics is getting more serious. What I say to the kids I train is how I talk to my own kids, and that's how I make it as pure as possible. When I converse with the guys at the college level, I say, guys, everything I'm telling you is what I would tell my kids. So what keeps me going is that I just believe it's that we change lives. On the surface, we're known as whatever you want to call us, a strength and conditioning coach, a human performance coach, a physical preparation coach, whatever name you want to come up with. That's the surface. But then when you start scratching some levels, you start hearing about the way it changes life. I mean, and that's probably in a selfish way. Today my coach from high school was here. He brings and he's like, Zach don't got to do this for you. He's fucking doing it for free. Show me somebody else who's doing it for free. Awesome. Like, nobody. And I always tell him, I go, Scott, it might be free of the money, but I'm getting a lot out of this, bro. I feel better training these kids. And, I come from a town where there's so many languages spoken. There's so many nationalities and ethnicities. It just doesn't, but you don't even think about it. I live in a town now where it's all white people. And to me, that is weird. So when I'm training all these kids, I got Indian and Chinese and African-American kids from all different parts of the world. I know that their parents, if they were to go home and say, Mom, Dad, there's this strength coach, their parents probably 80% are probably like, what the fuck is a strength coach? Go outside and play, son. That's where we come from up in that place in Edison. They don't know what that is. But I feel so good working with those kids because you know what? They understand work. And to me, there's this kind of beauty about working. There's something so beautiful about it. And some people just don't know how to work. It's like a foreign thing, and
I have almost the opposite effect. Like, I don't know how not to work, and because I love what I do, and I see that in you, man. And it's a good feeling to know that you have peers like yourself. You know, I won't even call you a peer, man, because you're at a higher level where I want to be at one point, at some point in my career. But man, like, I really see your passion. I feel your passion when you talk about these kids, and even what you're doing now with doing things for free. Like, you won't see that at that level that you're at. You know, people don't do that shit for free. And you giving your time and your effort and your energy, that shows a lot as you as a person, as a man. And I do commend you on that, though.
Yeah, you know what, like, Phil, man, like I said, I feel awkward when somebody says that to me, because I don't view myself as I'm higher than you, you're lower than me. I just view it as, like, we're coaches, man. I'm fucking in this with you. And that's, I think, what keeps me grounded, is that I'm never saying, like, I never find myself like, yeah, who the fuck are you to say? Like, who the fuck are you to ask me this? That I'm fucking Zach Even-Esh. Like, no, man, fucking not. I go home, I take out the trash, I do the dishes, I do laundry, I pick up the dog shit in the backyard, and all those things keep me grounded. Waking up early keeps me fucking human, and not like, I feel like, you know, some people, they lose touch with what coaching's about. You know, it's like, I don't know, man. There's so much weird shit going on out there that I've used this quote that, like, you know, the amateur seeks the fads and the gimmicks, right? You're trying to do crazy shit, shock people, whereas the expert understands the beauty and the power behind the basics. And I was listening to an interview on Power Athlete Radio, and they interviewed Rudy Reyes, who was a Force Recon Marine in the 90s, and he goes, back then, there was 300 Force Recon out of 300,000 Marines. And he's like, motherfucker, I don't need all these, I don't know anything about guns, but he rattled off, he's like, I don't need this or that, motherfucker. He's like, I'll fucking kill people with, like, whatever, this basic gun. He said, experience with the basics. And I've always said, give me a barbell and put me in the backyard, and I'll build a fucking hammer. I will build that hammer. So I'm always seeking to, I don't even know what it means to achieve more. For me, it's like I want to impact more kids. But at independent level, it has gotten way harder. So I have these two experiences of, I work at a university with a wrestling team. You don't have to market. You know, those kids come there. If they quit the team or get, you know, they have to leave the team. It could be for many reasons. Academics, the stress, they decide they can't handle it, the pressure, and so many other things. Whereas, you know, at the independent level, and it's probably even more interesting for you, you're down in Florida. Florida has a lot of strength coaches who are actually qualified that are in high schools, where for up here in Jersey, you don't have much of that. You have a lot of basically coaches that are basically like, if you go to that gym, you ain't on this team, and you got to be here. And I'm teaching fucking fifth-year seniors, hey, man, I need toes a little bit out. I need your feet here. I'm teaching them like the basics of foot position on a squat. I'm teaching them shit like, that's a half-rep pull-up, homeboy. Fucking little basics. But you know what other people say, oh, we do that. We do all that here. Or we have kettlebells. Well, so what? Sure. I got a kitchen. That don't make me Bobby Flay.
It doesn't?
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it was all about, you know, I got a car, does that mean I could beat whoever's like the NASCAR guy? You know what I'm saying? Like, I say this. Every football team has a field. They got coaches. They got a football. They got a weight room. But the same teams keep winning. It's because of coaching. It's because of how it's done. The coach, you know, is the chef. He orchestrates this whole, you know, the whole ecosystem, from the influence to the inspiration to the leadership to everything. And to me, that's, you know, I'm always seeking, how can I get better? I try to get better every day. And what I do when I coach also, Phil, what keeps me fired up is I don't even want to be outworked by the kids, because I never want a kid to come back 10 years from now and say, I saw you yawning. I saw you yawning that one time. Or one time, really give me the energy. I want to leave. I want us to walk out of the weight room, and I want to know, yep, I laid it all out. I left it all out. I made it happen. I gave you every opportunity. I coached you. I inspired you. I motivated you. I got you uncomfortable. I did whatever I had in my toolbox to give to you. And me, that's what keeps me going. Because when my wrestling coach came today and he's giving me all these props, I said, hey guys, I'm going to tell you something. Coach Gerba's talking about, I'm great, I'm this, I'm that. I go, I was not coachable in high school. That was a big, big mistake of mine. Not just training wrong, but I was not coachable. I was not mature. I made a lot of mistakes. I go, I basically took everything he taught me in high school about wrestling, and I applied it to my life, everything in my life. Yeah. And if he thinks I'm great, or you're defining me as successful, and then we can have many definitions of it, I go, I simply did what he taught me to do. He made me who I am. I didn't. He's like, he's a self-made man. Da da da. I go, nope, that's wrong. I am not a self-made man. My wrestling coaches made me. That's really, they fucking built me, and that's the truth. But I chose, even though I was done wrestling, I held on to how they coached me, and I carried it with me. Even though now I'm almost 42, I feel like I am more of a wrestler now than I was back then, even though back then I wrestled all the time. But now I feel like this is how a wrestler lives. I wake up early. I don't like these. I kind of try to live this kind of a little more simpler, a little more disciplined life. And dude, things are certainly not perfect in any area. But the key is I'm always trying to move forward. I'm always trying to be better than yesterday. And to me, that's kind of, wrestling or life to me is like this ongoing wrestling match. It's like another, it's here, I've got the next period and the next practice and the next match. And I don't know when that will ever fade. I don't know what will happen. The one thing that's kind of like a little bit of an internal struggle for me is, like I said, is like, I'm not sure if I'm best suited to coach the younger kids. I'm a little more or a lot more able to focus on the coaching when I'm at the university level. Whereas, as you know, Phil, you are a independent business owner. So you've got to hold the camera. You've got to showcase what you do. But really at the core, we're just supposed to be coaching. But because of the way technology has evolved, we have to constantly showcase what we do. And it's like, God forbid, it's not on Instagram today, but we got to play the game. That's part of the game. And if that's part of the game and that's what it takes to win, then we got to be like, okay, that's what it takes. I don't have to like it. I got to do it. But at my core, more than ever before, I'm more of a coach. 6 years ago, I was running all kinds of business stuff, and I liked it. But what turned me away from it was people became less interested in the coaching and all about the business. But what I learned was they're wrong, because I was holding these certifications and people were showing up and maybe they knew how to do a squat themselves. But then when it was time to coach, and then what the fuck do you do with that kid whose feet just turn out all the time, or who keeps leaning his hip over to the one side, or you're not connecting with him, or can you command the room? So you mean you could lift the weights yourself, you want to learn the business shit, you can't command the room. And that's when I started realizing, you know what? I don't think I want to be helping people with business, because they want to learn about, I don't know, more YouTube views, this and that, when I want to find out, how do I make these kids better? And if training is the business. I'm not going to deny that marketing is behind all this, but what embodies the business is being a great coach, being a great trainer. And for me, that's probably why I'm so much more connected when I'm at the university, because I can show up and I'm fucking like, it's on, baby. Like, we're coaching.
Yeah, I seen you at Rutgers, like I think it was on your Instagram, but I mean, even when you said it, you're like, oh man, I can't believe, like, it's not like you can't believe it's there, but like I could tell that it's a passion that you're in there and coaching these guys up.
I love it. And sometimes, your passion can even work against you, because sometimes it's too much for people to handle. Luckily for me, at Rutgers, the guys love me. Hopefully it remains that way. You just never know. You never know. But all I know is, if anything was to ever end, I could walk away and say I gave my all, and I never half-assed it. I remember when I was there in the winter, I caught like a stomach bug that it was on me for a week. It wasn't like killing me, but I was just like, fuck, just keep drinking a lot of water and starve this shit out of you, and don't say a word to anybody about it. Just fucking show up, do your job. Do your job that you're supposed to do and be great at it. So I love it. I love being around other people who have these, they're just high achievers. They're battery chargers, not battery drainers. And to me, that's just the essence of it. I love it. And here and there, I get to do a little behind-the-scenes stuff with some military. And to me, like, that's what I love that too, because they're training for something really amazing. Whereas when you're training people at the independent level, as you know, Phil, they could just kind of come and go. I don't care what agreement you signed. You signed a 12-month agreement and you're bailing out. I don't give a fuck what the contract or whatever it says. I don't want your money if you don't want to give me the money. I'm not gonna demand that you keep paying. To me, I don't like that. I feel like that's a dirty money. Whereas if you would speak to like a business coach, they would say, hey man, you give your best, and if somebody wants to half-ass it, you can't allow that to slow you down.
True.
Years ago, I heard this interview with Gary Vaynerchuk. And at the end of the interview, he's fucking just fired up, going and going, and the guy asked him a question, something to the effect of like, what would you say, to the people out there running businesses and starting to showcase and storytell and all this stuff? And he goes, I don't think people really understand how much it comes down to just genuinely caring. And I was like, oh, so that's so pure, so simple. And that is what it's about. Like, if you genuinely care, that's what it's about. And I'll say this, though, to the coaches out there listening. Just because you're doing good stuff doesn't mean other people are not going to try to stop you. There's quite interestingly, and sometimes you think it's ironic, but people will be like complaining when you're doing all these good things for people or kids or whoever. And that's probably what's bringing me back to reading, Robert Greene and the 50th Law of Understanding, how people will try to stop you even though you're doing something good. And I've always said, hey, it's about the kids. It's about the kids. But not everybody thinks that way. So you always have to be ready. That's kind of what being strong really is. I'm not just training to lift the most weight. I'm also training for all the shit that happens in life so that no motherfucker could hold me down.
Yeah.
Like training is many things in and out of the gym. So is being strong. And that's why when I communicate to coaches, I go, your workouts, your training should have a blend of not just the physical, but also the mental. And you're not going to reach everybody. You're not going to transform and change everybody, because ultimately the guys, and for you, I see you train a lot of women, women's mixed martial arts exploding, the ones that succeed the most, they're just very, they're disciplined, they're driven, they're ready to do the work. Whereas the other person that you always have to kind of coax and, hey, come on, do this, like, that dude's going to lose. That slacking is going to catch up to that person. But you know what I say to those people? I go, good. We need people like you, because not everybody could take first place. We need some guys that don't care about that. And That's the truth. Because if everybody wins, that's not actually reality. You know? So I think as I've gotten longer in the coaching game, I've gotten better at coaching. I've given people more chances to turn the corner. Like, it takes you time to get better. But I've also learned that here and there, unfortunately, I'm not going to impact somebody until they want to change themselves. I can't change them until they want to change themselves.
Right.
You know? So back in the day, I used to just fucking boot people out. Get the fuck out. You're out of here. Whereas now, I'll be like, listen, you were doing great. You've been struggling through these past 2 months. I don't need you to change next week. I need you to make up your mind now. I need you to make a change now and get intense right now. I need you to go home and start eating better. I need you to stop hanging out with your fucking loser friends. And I need it all to happen now, or we're just not going to do this anymore. But I believe you could do this change, and that's why I'm talking to you now, because I care about you. Whereas if this was a couple of years ago, I would be like, all right, you're half-assing it. Just go home. Go home and don't fucking come back here. I would do crazy shit like that. And then I'm like, am I thinking to myself, am I fucking crazy? Am I crazy? So I learned to do, like, the coach. And I learned, I guess, you know what that is? That's just being human. I learned to forgive and not hold the grudges. And I learned that we're human. And I learned to bring myself back and remind myself, hey, dude, when you were 15, your head was up your ass and you sucked also. You aren't a fucking great listener. So I really just try to get better at life every day. And that's what leads me to never saying, hey, Phil, don't be telling me about training. I'm older than you. Like, I would never. Like, we stay down at the hotel near you. I'm actually going to be there I'll be there in April. I'll hopefully be able to connect with you. Like,
yeah, definitely, man. Definitely.
I'm always, like, trying to learn. When I take my daughter down there for tennis, I'm watching the coaches, and I'm just picking up on their energy. And I'm like, damn, it's fucking hot out here. They're out here every day, 7 days a week. Today's Christmas Day, and they're training, and I'm just picking up on that. I'm trying to learn from them. I'm trying to just always, learn from the whole process of every coach. And sometimes, unfortunately, there are bad coaches, and I'm trying to learn, what's a bad coach? Somebody who basically doesn't care. When you don't care, you're going to yawn. You're going to, oh, my girlfriend today. You know what I tell coaches? I go, put that shit in your back pocket.
Yeah.
That's nobody's business but your own. You're here to train these people. Give them everything you got. And I say that to the wrestlers. I've been saying it every time, whether it's at my gym or at any of the colleges I've been to. I go, guys, I know shit is tough. I know, like, the academics, your girlfriend, family stuff. I mean, there's so much stuff that goes on in people's family lives that, like, it's just like you think your life is hard, then you hear somebody else. But I always tell them, I go, guys, you're having a hard time. Just make your training partner better. That's all I want you to focus on. And by pushing your partner, you're going to get better. I go, just keep it that simple. But don't announce you're this, you're that. Keep that in the back pocket. Let's fucking get everybody better. And it's been a really cool, like, coaching can go so deep. Like, you can really, it could just keep going. It's like this amazing thing that you keep learning from it. And the experiences are crazy. It's so crazy to, like, think that, like, it's this, you can just take it to such a, like a crazy level of how you could keep getting better at it, The tough thing is to you can't really explain this stuff to really the general population. It's like, this guy, like, sounds like he just smokes a lot of pot the way he's talking, right? He's like, sounds like he's crazy. But, man, I was in my awe today with all the kids coming down from my hometown. I never met none of these kids. But I'm like, I'm making my coach proud. I'm making my coach proud fucking from 20-something years ago. And, I'm making him proud that he changed my life. And seeing the kids train hard and, push through the struggle. And then we talked, and then they went and got pizza. And I was like, all these little things, like, They go and buy pizza. They go and support a little small business. Like, I feel good about a lot of those things happening, all because of the passion that came out of coaching. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much answered almost all of our questions. We had some set questions, but you really answered all of them. I just have a couple quick ones. One is, you have an esteemed record for training wrestlers, which continues today as a strength and conditioning coach for Rutgers, as you mentioned. We've seen in MMA many men and women come from amateur wrestling ranks and be successful. There just seems to be a strong mental wherewithal in these athletes. In your experience, do you feel wrestlers are taught a mental toughness that is just uncommon in many other sports?
Yeah, because it's so freaking hard. I mean, the intensity. A lot of those guys in MMA, they most of them wrestled through high school, then experienced some stuff in college. You've got a lot of them at the Division I level who are at the top, and they're coming from these top programs. Phil, I'm trying to think of like a lot of the guys that I saw when I was down there with Steve, but even like Steve, Steve's a Jersey guy.
Mm-hmm.
He also was part of like a world-renowned judo club out in Jersey called Cranford Judo Club. This very small place. I trained some guys from there. It was the toughest motherfuckers that they were so disciplined. They never even showed like it blew my mind. Those guys that came from that Cranford Judo Club, wrestling about what if you allow it to perform its magic on you, if you allow yourself to be coachable. Yes, it's just, even the Navy SEALs, like their biggest influx of guys are wrestlers, water polo, and I believe swimmers or surfers. So people who are used to kind of suffering, water polo, they say like the slang term for that is like underwater combat specialists, because they might be on the ball, but essentially like fucking boxing and beating each other up under the water. And the guys, like seeing the guys who were competed yesterday and today with us, I did these 7 events. Like I could see who would be the guy that you'd want, to have on your team versus the guys who are just there when it's convenient for them. So not every wrestler is tough, right? There's plenty of wrestlers that were just part of the team, but wrestling, something about it, man. And that's actually, I tell my son all the time, I go, Ethan, I know you love baseball, but you're always going to wrestle. Because when life is tough, I need you to be fucking tough. Mm-hmm. And you learn that shit from baseball. He's like, sure, Dad, baseball, I go, Ethan, I'm telling you straight up, dude. You always gotta wrestle. It makes you tough, and he knows it. He knows the feeling he gets when somebody bigger than him is coming at him and he wins that takedown. He has a pride, and that's at age 9, and that's something you want to teach this younger generation. These kids don't have that. People are afraid of all of this, combative stuff. Even like, it's almost like an alpha male. People think we're like bad or something. Like, God forbid I have confidence. Like, most men in their 40s can't do a fucking push-up. And that's not good, but people, like, God forbid, people will be like, oh, that's crazy that you work out at this age. That's just crazy. It's not crazy. It's normal to be fucking strong and capable and confident. So that, to me, is like what, my dad, when he grew up in Romania, they did everything. They wrestled. They had to do track and field events, soccer, gymnastics. They had to do all of that stuff. They had to. Their phys ed was like 90 minutes, 4 days a week. Mm-hmm. They boxing. Hard work was like the normal thing.
Yeah.
Wrestlers, it's if you come from and not every wrestler's tough. There's wrestling teams that get destroyed. And I'll tell you why. It's not because those kids are bad. It's because their coach doesn't care. If a coach that cares, he's going to find a way to make himself better, find a way to make the kids better, find a way to be a better leader, and that's what it comes down to is like, it's not the kids. It's like the kids don't know any better. It's the coach. You need great coaches. And whoever's lucky enough to get a great coach, because not everybody's going to be a good coach, let alone great. If you get a great coach, it could change your life.
Yeah. I'm an aspiring journalist, and I would love to write a book one day, but the task seems daunting. Just to do one. Yeah, you have done a whole bunch of them. How do you make the time to fit it in putting together your books, and what does the process entail from beginning to end?
So when I first started writing, my life was different. I lived with my parents. I'm in my early 20s. I'm not married. I don't have kids. There's a home cooked meal. I'm not doing the food shopping even. I'm working full time. I'm going to the gym, and that's it. Like, life is so easy.
Yeah.
When I first started writing, that was really an ebook. It was like 100 pages, and like I said, I would write. I was so passionate. I just wanted to share what we were doing with people around the world, because I was on a mission. Like I told you guys, I wanted to change the way wrestlers trained around the world. I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to start a business. I was trying to change the world, So when my wife we were engaged, she'd go to work, I'd write at least a chapter. And for me, I think I was so passionate, it was easy to write. And I actually still send I pretty much email Monday through Friday through my Zach Even-Esh.com website. So writing is like exercising. If you take that week off, it's like almost harder to go back and train. It's just easier to keep training. Yeah. So writing is like a muscle. Now, when I wrote, I'll tell you guys a real cool story. When I started writing the Encyclopedia of Underground Strength, I'm going to condense this story. I've shared it with a few people, I think maybe on a podcast or two, but my friends were hooked up with a very big publishing company. And the way it worked was that publishing company would hook you up with a co-author. He would handle the photography. Mm-hmm. He would interview you and kind of capture your story. And then you just hop on the phone every week. They would interview you and bang out a chapter. We worked together and got the photos done. It was a brutal 2.5 days. It was 95 degrees, fucking crazy humid. And when I did the thing, I was most inspired by Arnold Schwarzenegger's book. That was the first book that really changed my life. His encyclopedia and his education of a bodybuilder. So his encyclopedia inspired me to create an encyclopedia. We do the photos. We get the photos done. My co-author, he makes a phone call, misses one, then he misses two, then he makes one, then he misses three. So long story short, I'm like, dude, we gotta just fucking get on the phone with me once a week. That's how we gotta make it happen. Mm-hmm. And they, the way this guy operated was he'd work all night, sleep all day. And he's like, can't you get on the phone at 10 at night? I'm like, nah, dude, I got fucking 2 kids. I'm asleep at 10 at night. This thing's it's interfering with my lifestyle, da-da-da. He's like, I'm out of the project. I go, good, you're a fucking bitch anyway. So,
nice.
And then I'm like, fuck. I had those kids with me for 3 days, 2.5 days, taking all these pictures, and now I'm going to fucking quit. So I contact the owner of the company, and he's like, you can just buy back the photos. He was very unfazed at the fact that this guy quit. So I buy back the photos. I'm just kind of sitting on them, and I'm like, fuck this book writing. I can't do this. I got 2 gyms. I got my kids. I'm gotta fucking put food on the table. All this stuff was going on. Hurricane Sandy just happened. The business started. It was just nuts. And I'm like, fuck. I'm going to write an ebook. I'm going to tell these kids to be champions, and I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit. So I'm like, I don't even know what to do. And I reach out to Tim Ferriss. We have a quick conversation through Skype. And he says, dude, why don't you reach out to Dragon Door? And I also had spoken with Marty Gallagher, a good friend of mine. One of my favorite books, The Purposeful Primitive. And contacted John Duquesne. I said, I've got all these photos, thousands, probably had over 3,000 photos, maybe more. And here's kind of the outline. would you be the publisher? And really why I wanted to write a book is, I know this is like crazy, Jason, but it's kind of like what I said to the wrestlers, like take the focus off yourself, is I wanted my kids to have something if something happened to me, and then they could pass it to their kids. I want something that would be part of the history book. I was thinking to myself, all these YouTube videos I'm making, I don't even know what's going to happen to YouTube in the future. But books have certainly stood the test of time. I've got some books from the late 1800s. So I don't think that books are going to disappear. There's always going to be that book.
Mm-hmm.
Took the focus off myself and made it bigger than me. And that's important when you're writing, is that this thing has to be bigger than you. So it doesn't matter when you're tired or I'm not motivated or I don't feel like writing. And for you, I would definitely, get me your address. I'll send you the book Turning Pro. I always have like 20 of them on hand to send. Did you ever read Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield?
No, I've never heard of it.
Oh man, well this book's gonna like fucking kick you in the balls.
Ow, damn.
Yeah, perfect. So I make sure you guys text me your addresses. So I took that focus off myself, and then I missed every deadline. Like John Duquesne had to make like 5 different deadlines for me because it began evolving. I started realizing like, okay, I'm going to just write a book about fucking squatting with sandbags and squatting with a barbell and carrying shit. Like, what's inspiring about that? I started saying like, if you read this book, what's it going to do for you? I don't know. Maybe you'll be inspired, maybe not. I was like, I'm going to write this book, and I'm going to do like what Arnold did with his Education of a Bodybuilder. It was a part autobiography, part training manual.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, I'm going to really showcase all of my setbacks. And then I'm going to talk about how training helped me move forward. Whether that's, some people say that's success, some people don't. But I wanted a kid to pick up this book one day and change his life. That was the goal. Will my kids read this book and share it with their kids? And will some kids somewhere in this world, I don't know where, pick it up one day and it fucking just changes his life? That's what I wanted. So I started writing so much better. And also what inspired me was Dan John's book, Never Let Go. He was just sharing stories. It wasn't, this is chapter 1, this probably flows into chapter 2. I spoke about like getting beat up. And I spoke about, getting my bike stolen and how I still remember getting my bike stolen. And every time I leave my bike, I kind of like scan around and be like, any motherfucker want to do this? I will catch you. I will catch you from my feet. Like I wanted to share all of those things. And I think that when you write, you have to think to yourself, whose life am I trying to change with this? Ryan Holiday just released something called Perennial Seller. I'm listening to the audiobook. And it's basically like people create these bestsellers without really trying to. Mm-hmm. So I was even thinking of like Robert Greene. I went to his website and he hasn't like posted a blog post since 2014. But his books are selling like crazy. There's like Twitter accounts of people just posting quotes from all his books. It's not even him. He does some podcasts here and there, but his work was so powerful that there's people creating Twitter accounts to share it, and there's Instagram accounts to just share his stuff. It's not even him doing it. Yeah. It's just his work was so impactful, and that's, if you're going to write something, of course the sea of books is so huge now that I think it's important that you write for maybe a very specific audience. Mm-hmm. For me, I had somewhat of a core audience that followed me, so that was helpful to me, because I believe that people don't just buy the book, they buy you. So if they like you or love you really and love what you do, then they're going to buy that because they want to support you. And I learned that really from Gary Vaynerchuk. He always talks about all free stuff he gives out because he loves it. And he goes, people just buy my books because they are like, damn, he's been fucking giving me free shit for 2 years. I gotta fucking buy this $20 book. You know, so I would think of stuff that's very, you know, near and dear to your heart. I was editing and re-editing and going back and rewriting and redoing and hired another photographer. And ultimately that cover of my book, guys, was photo taken with like an iPhone 5.
Wow.
It wasn't even taken by the fucking photographers that we paid thousands of dollars for. It's like, you know, and you know, when I took photos, guys, I look at the photos from Arnold Schwarzenegger's books, and I remember like every photo told you a story without words. Like you just looked at it and the energy and the story came out of the photo and the angles were just right. And that's why when I take photos, sometimes I take photos from like an angle or a different spot and I make it a black and white or something, because if something is powerful enough, it speaks louder than, you know, any words you could actually put in there. So I really pulled from a lot of inspiration from, you know, from my childhood, from my kids, from wrestling, of course. And, you know, a big part was, like I said, was I get these kids to spend 2.5 days with me for this photo shoot. And they're asking book. So I'm like, what am I going to do? I go back and tell these guys I quit because somebody else fucking gave up. They were gonna. I thought to myself that they're going to look at me like I'm a fraud. I'm always telling them you don't quit. Now here I'm about to quit on a book.
Yeah.
So I was like, nope, got to make it happen. And that, so, you know, that's, you know, you got to have a deep why. You got to know who you're trying to really impact. And you sit down at that computer every morning and you write. You fucking write, because one sentence is 100% more than zero.
Well, I mean, thank you so much. That was like all the questions we had. Is there anything before we go, like you want to promote, let people know if they're not following you yet, which they should be, like your Instagram, the Twitter, Facebook, your website, anything you're working on soon, maybe a new book or some kind of programs or anything you want to plug before we go?
No, man, I'm pretty easy to find. On Instagram, I do that Strong Life tip of the day. If they want to follow kind of what we do at the gym, it's Underground Strength Gym. And then if you Google Underground Strength Gym, Underground Strength Coach, it's probably easier than spelling Zach Even-Esh. So, you know, that's it. And, you know, reach out. If somebody's got questions, you know, Twitter's an easy way to reach out to me, and I usually try to answer it by making a YouTube video. I'm having a hard time keeping up with the DMs on Instagram, and I feel like a dick. Days like this, when I coach at the university and then I coach at the gym, I'm like 50 emails in, and I'm like, fuck, I can't keep up with it, and I feel very bad. So I think if you hit me up on Twitter, I could really respond quickly. And I don't spend too much time on Facebook. I kind of just use it as I share the Instagram and YouTube to Facebook. I've been trying to do less of the, whatever you call it, the social media. I try not to let it consume me, because I always tell my kids, I go, video freak makes you weak. They start getting consumed by that stuff, and I'm like, man, that shit's just no good for you.
Yeah. Phil, you know, the usual sources for you, let people know?
Yeah, you know, everything's pretty much the same from Twitter and Instagram. It's Daru Strong, and then Snapchat's Daru Strong 1. I'm also going to be starting up a vlog series on my YouTube page. And so if you want to check that out, you'll just see my daily grind of, you know, training clients, athletes, everything in between. Kind of trying to follow in Zach's footsteps over there with the YouTube and things like that. So you can check that out. I'll make sure we get that the link in the description, and then go from there.
Love what you're doing, Phil. I love it, man. All that, you know, all the athletic stuff that you do, the jump training and the stability work. To me, you know, I don't showcase a whole lot of our warm-ups. Yeah. But I feel like our warm-ups, I see what you're doing. I love that. I do similar things like that, all that jump and stick and land, sprinting. Man, it's very hard to kind of describe the optimal sets and reps behind that, but to me, that I feel like is one of the biggest parts of our training, is that athletic type of training.
Has to be. It has to be, definitely. Just for injury prevention and just performance in general, I think it's a major part.
Yeah, I hope, man, you should, if you ever come up this way, you know, you could always utilize my gym if you're doing seminars or stuff like that. I don't really do seminars that much anymore because I'm pretty much work like Monday through Saturday. So Sunday I try to just shut it down and make sure I'm with the kids. But if you ever come up this way and need a place to do your seminar at, you know, you're always welcome. And it's cool, man, to see what you're doing with the fighters. It's I think that what you're doing is really at the forefront of what should be done for combative athletes. So it would be cool to see you put that out on YouTube and any of these other kind of different channels of how you could impact people. I think it's cool.
I appreciate it, man. Definitely means a lot coming from you.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you guys, and I'm grateful, and I'll share this out. You let me know when it's out.
All right, thank you. Sure. Thank you so much for coming on. Truly an honor. Zach Even-Esh, I am Jason Burgos. He's Phil Daru. Come back for episode 12, everybody. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Cool, bye, guys.
All right, brother.